Hey guys, Drifter here. Today I've got a game review for you of World War Z. I've had about 2 days of playtime of this game over a couple of different sessions, and I feel qualified to offer my review now. Also, since this is one of the few games that actually came out not in beta, not in early access, not in demo mode for pre-order exclusive whatevers, I feel that it's more appropriate to do an actual review instead of a preview or impression since the full game is out. Today's episode is going to go in factual, good, bad, and ugly format. So let's start off with the factual. World War Z, the game, is available on Steam, PS4, and Xbox One. No Switch or mobile at the moment. The game is based on the 2013 movie and the 2016 book of the same title. It's not based on the movie based on the book, it's based on both of them. However, it overall seems to borrow more heavily from the movie with the fast zombies, with the giant piles of them, with the horde, and with the focus on action instead of survival. The book, comparatively, was a much slower, methodical affair with slow zombies that was written more for emotional impact and talking about survival tales. However, most of the locations and stories and setups for the game do come from the book. The game is an over-the-shoulder third-person shooter like Gears of War, Just Cause, or Fortnite. Its most unique mechanic is the zombie horde, some sort of AI or mechanic where the zombies come in a giant wave, like a true colossal meat wave. And unlike other games where they just bump into each other or stand around, these guys trip and fall and fumble and they make big piles, and if they need to climb something, they don't just magically jump 20 feet. There's a big pile of them that clumps up and they crawl on over each other like a big human pyramid, and that's really neat. And you can shoot the base of the pyramid to make them fall down and delay their inevitable attack on your position. There are some special zombies that scream, pin, or poison you, very similar to Left 4 Dead as well. In the beginning of the video, we're going to blend the factual and good because there are some factual things about the game that I do find to be good. And let's start off with the fact that this is a full release game for $40, not $60, so you've got a discount right there, and it is a complete game. The game also doesn't seem to have any kind of microtransactions. When I first started playing, I saw that there was like a little special bundle thing you could buy, and I saw that there were points, but other than buying the special bundle to get some cosmetics, I couldn't find a way to buy points. None of the people in my Let's Play group that wanted to upgrade all their stuff could find a way to buy points, and nothing online seems to indicate that there are microtransactions. The game's not in beta, it's not in early access, it's not in pre-alpha, there's no season pass to buy, there's no points to buy, there's no system exclusivity, there's no big planned DLC release date. You just get a full complete game for $40, which is very nice. And this game comes with a co-op campaign that you can do online with friends, or you can just do solo with some AI buddies, and a multiplayer system that both have deep progress trees that are completely experience-based. They're not money-based, they're not anything other than how much you've played this game and how much you put into it is how much you can upgrade your characters. And overall, I think that's great. Those are factually true things, but I think that they're good things. It's like getting a 2006 game release, and that just feels so nice and relieving in an era of microtransactions and cosmetic hats and dances and season passes and battle passes and infinite passes and nickel and diming people. It's nice to just get a whole game for $40 and be done with it. Also nice to have a movie-based game that is a functional game with its own merits and stories. More often than not, when you play a game based on a movie or comic book series or existing franchise, it's sort of a carbon copy of the movie. You flow through the story of the movie really quickly, the game is very poor, or you come and find a game that is essentially just a copy of other games with random movie stuff thrown in, and I guess World War Z has a little bit of that. But overall, the game functions fine on its own. It tells a story just fine on its own. You don't need to know anything about the movie or the book to enjoy the game aplenty. Some other good points are that the horde zombies work really well overall. They're a little bit buggy and they do spaz out and their animations aren't perfect, but you're fighting several hundred of them at once. It feels like a hodgepodge of Left 4 Dead and Dead Rising in that it is sort of first person, it's over the shoulder, but they come at you really hard and really fast and you have to defend this position like Left 4 Dead, but the scale of it is more like Dead Rising, just with like hundreds upon hundreds of zombies zombies on screen. They do big body piles, they trip over each other, they climb, they wobble, they stack on each other. When you melee them, you kill them in a variety of unique ways. I think the melee combat was well designed overall. You can go really hard at first, and you get more and more tired the more you swing. It's nice to like curb stomp people. It's neat to like shoot one zombie and watch it trip, and then watch the other one run and trip over that one. They chunk, they gib, they do a lot of good things with the zombies. It's kind of a one-trick game, as most zombies games are, but it does it well. The co-op campaign is a full-length campaign of similar length to Left 4 Dead and most modern campaigns. If we were to beat the whole thing, depending on how good of a player you are, I'm assuming it's going to take you somewhere between 5 and 10 hours, just kind of depending on how fast you like to blow through these things. And of course, there are difficulty levels that you can ramp up to make it significantly more difficult, which would, of course, slow down the time that it takes you to beat the campaign. The campaign has a lot of unique settings. It's a very international kind of game. You start off at New York, then you do Jerusalem, which is a very rare setting for a video game, then Moscow, and then Tokyo, of all places. And you've got different survivors telling different stories and different regional struggles in each one, which is really cool. These are all borrowed from the book, so I'm a big fan of that. And the stories are overall kind of dark and gritty and honestly a little bit mean. I expected the game to be a little bit more lighthearted. I think I just put my expectations on Left 4 Dead and Dead Rising, or maybe the book was definitely dark and gritty, and it was a little mean in some senses, but most of the book was about survival and most of the game was about action. This feels kind of like a mean action. Like everything that you could think of goes wrong, nothing goes right. There's always a new horde, there's always a new disaster, there's some new gross thing happening to you that's just punishing you in this game, and it feels really hard to actually survive, which I think is good. And multiplayer is functional. Multiplayer works and has a whole variety of game modes along with its own progression tree. But starting out with multiplayer is where we're going to transition into the bad about World War Z. Multiplayer doesn't appear to be very well thought out. It's just a bunch of game modes from Call of Duty or Halo with a big swarm thrown into the map for funsies. You can play Swarm Domination or Swarm Point or whatever it's called. It's basically just domination, but the swarm attacks a random point. You can play King of the Hill from Halo, but a zombie swarm attacks the point. You can play Oddball from Halo, which is you trying to carry a vaccine to save people. I don't know, I guess anti-vax people are going to get triggered, and then the swarm comes to attack you with the vaccine. It's the same kind of modes that you've all played before. And the guns aren't particularly well balanced or intuitive or distinct in any capacity. You can never tell what the enemy's using until they've killed you with it. They all sound about the same. They all perform about the same, with a few of them being really strong and a few of them being really weak. Some characters are clearly way better than others, just head and shoulders above the rest of the crowd, and some are pitifully done. There is essentially no sound design in multiplayer. You're not going to hear footsteps. You're not going to hear callouts. You're not going to know what gun you're being shot at by the sound. You're not going to know where the zombies are coming from. That just really isn't a thing. There's no sound design whatsoever. There's no real hit marker feedback. Yeah, you do get like a tiny one, but it's not chunky. It's not juicy. It doesn't feel satisfying like Call of Duty. Not a lot of HUD indicators, which may work better for this game than other games, but I do find it sometimes difficult to tell enemies from friendlies. Maybe that's my color blindness. And there's not really a lot of ability for advanced strategies. Unlike Gears of War, there's not a unique cover system. Unlike, say, something like Just Cause, which I think is all single player, there's not grappling. Unlike Call of Duty, the game's not responsive enough to be a true snap shooter. Unlike Fortnite, there's no building, so the annoying sort of over-the-shoulder hip-fire box, slightly tightening, not really aiming down sights, does get old after a while. And the multiplayer really, truly is just the co-op campaign where you can kill other people. They just took the exact same engine and mechanics from the co-op campaign and turned damage on so that you can shoot the other players. And this also reminds me of a 2006 game's multiplayer, in that they build the campaign first, and then they just take whatever assets from the campaign and repurpose that into multiplayer with very little thought given to it. On top of the 2006 comment, the campaign is fun and all, but isn't significantly improved over 2008's Left 4 Dead. Left 4 Dead is a 10-year-old game, and it's probably a superior game to World War II. You have very similar boss zombies, very similar hordes that come and attack you, very similar weapons, similar melee mechanics, rush defend areas, similar down and rezzing, similar getting pinned and poisoned, and World War Z has very little going on that Left 4 Dead doesn't. It borrows heavily from this genre, which Left 4 Dead almost defined, but ultimately I feel that World War Z is inferior to Left 4 Dead in terms of uniqueness, smoothness, graphics, polish, animation, and voice acting. There's a lot of rough edges there where the graphics, they work, they're functional, they're not bad, but they glitch out a little bit. Animations are a little weird. The facial animations are definitely rough. Some voice actors are good, some aren't. You get random bugs. It kind of feels like a big boy sequel to Left 4 Dead or like a very, very advanced Left 4 Dead mod. And on the topic of polish, most of the edges around this game are rough. I'd like to say it was a good game with a few rough edges. It's got a lot of rough edges. It's a very functional shooter that doesn't fail in any big way. There's no huge struggle. There's no one singular bug that breaks the game. There's no big boneheaded brain designs. But I could tell it didn't get a lot of love from the feedback systems people. It's very difficult for players to know exactly what they're doing. And this leads to a lot of wondering if you did the thing, if you shot the person, if you're close enough to the thing to do the thing, if this is the animation you're supposed to see, or is it bugging out? What direction am I supposed to look? It's just kind of rough overall. And my ugly section for this video is going to be very short. Quite simply, the game is buggy in the stability kind of sense. I only bought it on PlayStation 4. I haven't tried it on PC or Xbox yet, but the PlayStation 4 version had a fair number of problems. I lagged out quite a few times. I had quite a few crashes, couldn't boot the game, needed to restart. I was playing with T. Martin. T. Martin had a ton of problems getting going. He had a lot of struggles with his, and Chaos had none. So this is going to vary from person to person. Some people won't have any issues whatsoever with it, and others might struggle quite a bit. So let's summarize this whole review. It's good that you get a full game that truly has plenty to do for $40. And it's a fun overall game with big moments that will entertain you, and the horde is fun, and killing zombies is satisfying for a little while, until the flaws start to show. And then you'll realize it's a pretty average game that's definitely worth playing and beating, but once you beat the campaign and you've played multiplayer a little bit, you're going to feel kind of 50-50 on replaying it, and I don't think it has the greatest replay value. And also, you'll probably have to restart a few times if you're doing it on console, because it'll be crashing. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something useful. If you did, don't forget to like, favorite, and subscribe. Drifter out.